Hey everybody, today we're going to take a look at the first module in our module highlight series, and this one comes to us from Virtual Tabletop Assets, who actually makes a number of very good modules for Foundry. The first one that we're going to be taking a look at, though, involves their DnDBeyond integration, which will make it so that you can pull in your player characters, all of their items, spells, immunities, resistances, hit points, hit dice, all that good stuff. You can import monsters, and all of their spells, abilities, resistant immunities, etc., including their images, which is also really cool. And now with the latest version, you can even import entire adventure modules from D&D Beyond into Foundry, and it will automatically create scenes from the maps and things like that. It won't automatically handle walls and lighting and all that stuff. That would, at that point, just be black magic. But it will drastically ease your life, especially if you're running D&D Beyond or D&D modules and you want to run them in Foundry. I should say at the top that some of these are restricted behind a Patreon tier, but I think the free tier is actually pretty generous. And some of the things that are included in it might be all that you need. So here's what's free and here's what's restricted behind Patreon. First, free. You can import all of your player characters. It doesn't matter how many. And it can import all of their spells, their items, their entire character sheet effectively. You can also import any of the monsters that are in the SRD, along with their spells, abilities, immunities, yada, yada, yada. And you can import adventure module content into journals inside of Foundry, but it will not automatically create scenes from them. That's restricted behind the Patreon tier, but it will still take roll tables and things like that inside of the adventure module, convert them into actual roll tables inside of Foundry that you can click into, and all that good stuff. So here's what's restricted to the Patreon tier: importing monsters outside of the SRD and importing adventure modules into Foundry and having it automatically create scenes. But if you ask me, that's pretty generous, and the cost of entry is their healthy snacks tier to get access to the full integration where you can pull over everything, and that's $5 a month. And especially now that Foundry is out of Patreon and that subscription is no longer required, you might have a little bit of Patreon money to move around, and I think sending it over to Virtual Tabletop Assets is an excellent choice. So the first thing that we're going to do is take a look at what's necessary to be installed in Foundry, the module, and the Chrome extension. So we'll do that in just a second. Let's go ahead and install the Chrome extension, which I'll have linked down below in the description, but you can also find on vttassets.com. Be sure to put a www dot before that, though. So I'm just going to click Add to Chrome, Add Extension. Easy peasy, it's all added in and we should be good now. Then we're going to jump over to Foundry, go to Add-on Modules, Install Module, and we're going to type in VTT to start finding their integration. We're going to install the D&D Beyond integration. We're going to give it 1 second to download that and finish. And we're actually going to come back and type in VTTA again, and we're going to install the Iconizer module. This isn't strictly necessary, but I think it has an excellent benefit that we'll see in just a minute, and you can decide then if you think that it's worthwhile or not. Now we're going to jump into the game. So we're going to go into one of my game worlds and come over to our main settings area, manage modules, and we're going to activate both of these modules, hit save module settings, and the application will reload, and we're going to do one other thing. We're going to come back to the settings. We're going to go back to configure settings, this time to module settings, and we're going to skip past everything for Virtual Tabletop Assets Iconizer and go down to the D&D Beyond integration. And we have this requirement for an avatar upload directory and a scene upload directory. And we're going to go ahead and click into this, and we see that we've got directory imports does not exist. That's because it was already looking for an import/avatars folder that doesn't exist. So just in the file browser, we're here in our main data directory where we've got module systems and worlds, and we're just going to create that directory. And we're going to call it imports, yes, and then we'll click in, and we're going to create avatars, just like it's asking for down here. We're going to hit yes, and we're also going to create the scenes folder that it's looking for down here. So if we hit scenes, We can hit yes, and then we'll click into avatars and hit select directory, and we'll click into this just to make sure that it's got import/scenes properly selected as the directory still. We'll hit select directory, save changes, and now we should be good to get going, but we can go through the rest of those settings a little bit first. Now for everybody's favorite parts of the videos where I open up the settings tab, go into module settings, and then long-windedly explain what every setting does. So we've already looked at the avatar upload directory and the scene upload directory. The next setting that we can take a look at is the compendium import policy, which is a GM only setting. And this basically determines what the module should do when you are re-importing something that you've already imported. Like if you're re-importing a goblin or something like that, what should it do in the compendium? And there's a few options that we can select from there. Save all entities, overwrite existing ones. And this is good if you aren't doing a lot of homebrew or something like that, and you just want to make sure that it's got the latest and greatest information. Maybe there was an Unearthed Arcana update or something like that, and you just want it to overwrite the information in the compendia for the existing creature, which is what I prefer. But then there's also save new entities only, do not overwrite existing ones. So if you're in the habit of importing a lot of creatures and then making some minor modifications or major modifications even through homebrew, but you don't want to create secondary versions of those monsters in the compendium, this is a good setting for you. So it will only save new entities into the compendium. It won't overwrite existing ones. And then there is do not save the entities at all, which may sound confusing, but the module actually imports things into two different locations. It will import them into their respective compendia, whether that's DDB monsters, DDB items, or DDB spells, but the monsters and things will also be imported into a DnDBeyond folder over here, and spells and items and things like that will automatically also be imported into a DnDBeyond folder in the items section. So if you don't want them imported into a compendium at all, you just want them added into the world, this is a good, or not into the world, but into the tabs over here. This is a useful setting for you. I like save all entities, overwrite existing ones. We can see down here selection option for which compendium should items, spells, and monsters be saved into. These compendia were automatically created by the module when we installed it, or when we activated it, actually. But you can create other compendia and link them in here. This will give you a list of all of your existing compendia. The one thing I would recommend is not using anything that ends in this SRD tag, because anytime you update your system, that's going to be overwritten and you're going to lose anything that you've already imported. The last option is the cleaning policy, and this one's a little bit confusing. But as I mentioned, monsters, items, spells, they're imported into two places: inside of the world, which is the sidebar, and then inside of the compendia, which are over here in the actual compendia tab. And this determines what should happen when you are updating something that you've already imported and may exist in the world and in the compendia. So the first one is keep all entities in the world, which is my preference. If I've already imported something, I'm fine with it being in this DnDBeyond folder over here, in either the actors or the items directory. But there's also delete imported monsters or delete imported spells. So if you're importing something updated, it will update it in the compendia and it will delete it from over here, either in the actors tab or in the items tab if it's a spell. And then the last option is delete all imports. So it would delete both the monster and the spell from the actor or the items tab. I don't use that myself. I like to keep everything in both sections, and when you import it, it will just update it in both. But if you prefer one of the other options, then that's there for you. Okay, so now that we've looked at all of the settings, we can get to what everybody actually wants, which is to learn how to import characters, monsters, and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's take a look at importing our first monster. The first thing that we have to do is come up to the VTTA DnDBeyond extension, and we have to connect it to Foundry. So we're going to click this Connect to Foundry button, and what this does is connect the extension to the other tabs that may contain DnDBeyond, and to the actual Foundry tab that we have running. And one restriction to this is that you do have to be accessing your Foundry game through the browser. So if you are normally running it through the application, all you have to do is come up to your browser while it's running and the world is launched and type localhost colon 30,000, and I believe it's actually /join, but if you don't put that, if you just put this, it will bring you to your login screen and everything like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this Archmage, just as an example. And the first thing we see is that it's not connected to Foundry, and that's because we just connected here. We haven't refreshed this page yet. And we can see that we've got this spinning check mark. Now this means that it's taking a look at everything in the page and trying to determine if we already have these spells and these abilities and other things like that already included in the compendia. And if it does, we can quickly import everything. If not, then we're going to have to do a little something to get it working. And we see that we've got 30 of this monster spells are not yet imported to Foundry, and they've all got these little X's next to them. Now, one thing that we could do is just come over and hover over each one, kind of slowly let this card pop up, and then it will start importing them into Foundry, into the spells section, and we see all these really nice icons over here. That's because we installed the Iconizer module earlier. If we hadn't, these would all just have Mystery Man icons. But what the Iconizer does is it has a built-in database of spells, attacks, moves, features, all that kind of stuff. And if there's a built-in Foundry icon that's fitting for it, it will use that icon. And if there's not, then it will use the Mystery Man icon. So we get a lot of really nice graphics included that are already built into Foundry just by enabling that module before we go in and start doing all of our imports. So let's go back to the Archmage, and we don't have everything selected, but let's just hit import to Foundry, and it's going to start going through grabbing armor class, hit points, its full stat block basically, and start importing it into Foundry. And we can tell that it's still loading a little bit by this moving world icon over here, and it'll take just a second to finish. And now that it's finished, it's imported. We see that it's still got this spell thing because it's going to start checking to see which of these spells are included and which aren't. And we see that we get a different look for a lot of these things. And that's because we can click on these to roll to Foundry. But we're going to take a look at that more near the end because there's some other features that go with it that are super cool. So anyway, let's jump back to Foundry real quick just to take a look at the actor section. It places in monsters, humanoid, archmage, and we see that we do have all of its stat block, but if we come over to spells, not all of it's in here because we didn't import all of it. We didn't actually hover over each one to make sure that it was able to import the spell and get all of its information, but we do still have all the nice icons in here, which is great. It pulls in its biography, its features, a whole bunch of stuff. Its challenge rating, XP, what rule page it's on, damage resistances, just about everything. So it also pulls in its image, and we can see if we drag it on here that it will have that, which doesn't look great, but in another video we'll maybe look at the tokenizer module that VTTA also makes. That'll make it so that you can make really nice tokens out of those images. But that's for another day. So one way that we can quickly import all of the spells is by creating a level 20 wizard, a level 20 druid, and a level 20 cleric. I actually already have all three of those created, but I want to quickly show you a way that you can create these characters quickly without having to level them and add everything manually. So if you come over to create a character, hit randomize, we'll choose a level 20. We're going to choose a class, and I'm going to do wizard for this because I want to show you one additional thing you have to do with wizards that you don't have to do with clerics or druids. And we're going to call this Importus Wizardus to give it a fancy D&D sounding name. We're going to create this character, and we're going to click through to the character sheet. And if we come over to spells and manage spells, we can see by clicking add spells that we have all of our spells. These are some things that I don't have access to or are from other things. I can't quite remember. But we do with wizards have to come through and click learn on each one of these abilities, which we don't have to do for druids or clerics because they all automatically know all of their spells. They just have to prepare them. So for the wizard, just come through and click learn on everything and it'll go great. I'm going to close this out though because I already have Brainy Boy over here, who is my wizard that I have already gone through and added all of the spells as learned spells. And we're going to take a look at how we can import them as a character. So if you come up to your player character's URL and you just type /JSON, it will load this huge amount of text, which we can Control-A, Control-C, and then jump over to Foundry. We'll come over to our actor section. We're going to minimize all this. We're going to create an actor. You can name it whatever you want because it's going to get rewritten. And now we have this B right next to our character's name, which we can click into. And we're going to paste our JSON and it renames them to the correct name. It gives them the correct level, the correct XP. It fills in basically their entire character sheet for us automatically with all this stuff pulled in. The inventory is already here. The Iconizer already gave us all these great looking icons. The features section has icons wherever it has information for it, or icons for it. The spell book has a lot of things. We can see that most of them already have their icons too. And so this is really great. And we're going to quickly do the same thing for the other two characters. I'm going to do test, and I'm going to do another character, which is going to be test 2. And I'm going to grab Hippie, who is that's the druid character. There we go. My brain broke on me for a second there. So I'm going to grab this, come back to the B, enter, fills out everything, spellbook, all that. Great. And then we're going to go to Holy Moly, who is our cleric. We're going to do the same thing, grab the JSON, Control-A, Control-C, and we're going to open this test account, hit B, paste in the JSON. I cannot because it was cut off. So I might have, let me see, was this Holy Moly? Yeah. So I might have copy and pasted this before the entire page had had a chance to load. It looks like everything is loaded now. And I have heard people talk about that issue before. So that's something that can happen to you. Make sure that it's fully loaded. We'll Control-A, Control-C, make sure everything's selected, paste, and ta-da, there it worked. And everything's great. We've got all of the inventory, all the features, the full spell book, and everything looks really good. So we can close this now. Actually, before I do that, let me show you one other thing. So we'll open the B again. I'm going to come back here and go back to the actual link to Holy Moly. I'm going to click it, and we can add this for each one of our characters, and it will kind of verify, and we'll see that the B changes from a white to a red one. And it means that we've imported our URL for our character, and we can use these keyboard commands to, or these shortcuts to quickly get access to the JSON page again, or just the character sheet in a new window. So when we level up or anything like that, we can go and grab that JSON, re-import it, and it will update the character with all of the new information. Or if you just do that at the beginning of each game or the end of each game to sync up with where your character actually wound up at the end of the game or the end of the session, then you can do that. And we can do that for each one of the characters. I won't show it all right here because you get the idea. But now if we come back over to the Archmage and we refresh this, it's going to do another check. It's going to start sorting through all the spells and see which ones are in the compendium and which ones aren't. And in just a second, we should have an answer where all of these spells, even the ones that we hadn't imported already, are in there because we imported our wizard, our druid, and our cleric. And now all of these spells are also clickable, and it will send all this information over to the chat if we click it. So let's just click banishment, come over here, and it didn't. Why didn't it? Oh, because I didn't actually import it into the character. That's on me. So let me actually do update and Foundry VTT. And this is going to take all the things that are now available uh, on this monster. It's going to pull everything over into Foundry, and then it should refresh the page once it's finished, and then we can give that a try again, and everything should work that time once, I actually use the software correctly. There we go. Now everything should be ready. Let me come over here and just check on the Archmage, make sure that everything is in here. Yeah, there we go. Now all of the appropriate leveled spells are applied. So let's come back to the Archmage. Let's try to cast Banishment. Come over here, and we can see that the spell configuration window popped up over here. We can choose which level to cast it at, whether it should consume a spell slot, and we can cast it if we want to. I'll click Close here, and we're going to take a look more at those clickability functions later on in the video. But let's take a look at something else real quick. So the thing that we're going to take a look at is how we can actually connect the extension to Patreon so that we can get all those cool Patreon only features, because everything we've done so far is doable with the free version. And actually more of the things that I'm going to show are doable with the free version, but I want to take a quick look at importing non-SRD monsters. So we're going to connect to a Patreon account now, but you can feel free to skip this section if you're not intending on doing so. So the first thing we have to do is come over to www.vttassets.com, and then we can click this login with Google. I'll have to blur this so that I don't get doxxed because I'm using my personal Gmail account, my personal Patreon account. I am already subscribed on Patreon, but if you're not, you can come to my Patreon. You can connect this with your Patreon account and do a similar login process where it will check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed, you can always come over to patreon.com/VTTassets, join at least the healthy snacks level, and then you'll get access to all this cool functionality. Now, once you're logged in here, you've connected your Patreon account, you've been verified as a patron, then you can come back to the extension settings by clicking on the VTT Assets icon over here and click Options. It'll bring you here. And all we have to do is click on the login with Google. And you can also come to the support me on Patreon down here if you want to do it that way. Another thing to blur, I'll click on my email address. It will get me logged in. I have to blur it up there too. But we're now running in Patreon mode, and I will explicitly say what things are or are not patron only functionality. But let's take a look at importing some non-SRD monsters. So the thing that we're going to take a look at is adding non-SRD monsters. So we're going to jump back to DnDBeyond, and we're going to come up to the collections, and we're going to go to My Encounters and just do a quick Create New. And over here, we can filter by source. So let's find something from Volos. We'll do an Alhoun, how about? We can click on this and it will open in a new tab. We'll see that it's going to start detecting spells, which is going to be another thing that might take a minute as it goes through the compendia and checks, or the compendium because it's singular, and checks each one of these values. Oh, and one of these spells was not imported with the wizard, the druid, or the cleric. So if we highlight over this, we can have that imported. We can click Import to Foundry VTT. It's going to grab that one spell that wasn't already imported, all of the rest of this monster stat block, get it pulled in, its biography and information over here, and we'll give that a second to keep going. There we go, and now everything should be imported, so we'll go back over here, and if we check the undead, we'll see that we've got an Alhoun. It has its full spellbook imported. Everything's looking good. And we've now imported our first non-SRD monster, which is a Patreon-only bit of functionality. And now we can start taking a look at adventure modules. Now, I don't have an awful lot of adventures in DnDBeyond, but I do have access to the Lost Mines of Phandelver. So let's jump over to that. And One little bit of information that I do want to give is that you can't import from the table of contents page. That's why we're getting this kind of undefined message over here. But if we come over to a specific part, like say part 2, we can see that we've got stars over here indicating the degree to which these sections are prepared and fine-tuned. And we also have this import to Foundry VTT button. So let's click import to Foundry VTT, and we can scroll down and see everything that's in this page. We've got this map, got this other map for the Red Brand hideout. Hopefully this is not too spoilery for anybody who might be running Lost Mines of Phandelver. We've got this whole long bit of information. We can come back up here and see if this has finished importing. It looks like it has. So let's come over to our scenes, and we can see that we've got Lost Mines of Phandelver, see part 2 Phandalin, and let's go ahead and activate this actually, and we can see that we've got the whole Phandalin map installed. And one tiny detail that I want to point out about exactly how crazy Sebastian is, who is the developer behind VTT Assets, is that you'll see that this background color is not the same as it is by default. What he did was take the primary color from the map, or one of the edge colors or something like that, and he changed the grid automatically to match that color so that it would be more smooth and an easier transition. And we've got this already imported super high resolution copy of Phandalin that we can look at. We can jump over to Red Brand Hideout, and he has this already created custom artwork to go on it, which just looks amazing. He's a maniac. And we see that we've got the same thing here. This is more of a gray, so it's more of the natural color, but we've got the Red Brand Hideout in here. The squares aren't necessarily exactly accurate, but we can change that easily by going back to one of my previous basics videos about how to configure a grid for your map, and it'll teach you how to go through the grid autoscaler and everything like that. But this is basically almost done. All we have to do is go through, pop in some lights, turn on global illumination, or throw down a torch in each one of these rooms, and it's basically already done. It gets sorted into these super clean areas. I don't remember if that section had any roll tables in it, but we've got these journal entries where it's split up into the specific sections, where we can come into Red Brand Hideout. We can get information for room 1, the cellar. All of this stuff is already pulled in here easily, and it's amazing. So let me shrink that. We can get full description of Phandalin. We've got all of this in here. All of these things are already cleared. We can click on any of the images as we're scrolling through. Like if we wanted to show them the creature, we can click show players and pop that up to all of our players. All of these things are actually linked, and they'll take you to their DnDBeyond sections. It's amazing. I think it's so great. So let's close this and let's see if... No, so there weren't any tables on that page, but one of the cool things is that on adventures that do have tables, let me just make sure there weren't any tables and it wasn't a bug or anything. No, it wasn't. So I think it's part 3 that has one of those. So let's actually jump over to part 3 real quick, and we're going to do an import of this as well. And because here's wilderness encounters, and let's see if this one already works with pulling in everything and including the roll tables and all that good stuff. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. So it's got to grab all this, download it, pull it in, put it into its scenes directory, get everything organized, rename it, attach that great art. It's got to convert everything. So it might take a moment, but like it's going to save you so much time compared to what it would have taken you. We can see that several of these things started to get pulled in, and we see we've got our tables. So we can do a day roll. It's already got the HTML in it and everything, so that it looks nice when we actually use it. So let's, I'm going to change this to a private GM role because I don't like my players to know when I'm rolling a daily possible encounter or something like that. So we've got Sturges and we've got Wolves, and it will actually link you to this, and then you can import it into Foundry right away, right then and there. That's, oh, it's so cool. I cannot believe how well this works. So there's this table. Let's take a quick look at what the other table was. Night rolls for different circumstances. Boom, we can see we get more Sturges and more Goblins. The first time it was Wolves, and all of this comes together so easily. We've got more imported scenes. So we've got part 3, the Spider's Web, the Ruins of Thunder Tree. Let's activate this map, take a look at it, pull out. We see that we've got this, again, changed color. And all of this stuff just works. This functionality of automatically importing the scenes isn't free, but everything else is free. The journal import, the roll table conversions, all that, the player character import. You just can't import all of the monsters and automatically import scenes. But you know what? Even if the entire thing was free, you should go to their Patreon and subscribe, because this is amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised if he started building up a database of what the PPI for each one of these maps is, so that it will automatically configure the grid for you as well. And that might actually already be the case for some adventures. I know he's putting a lot of effort into Curse of Strahd first to make sure that everything there is working perfectly and get a full star on that. But the plan, I believe, is to go through all of these adventures and get them ready. So, I mean, this is pretty great already for me. I don't know about y'all, but hopefully this video was helpful. It gave you a lot of information on how you can import anything into DnDBeyond. I'm skipping something. I'm skipping all of the cool stuff that I said that I was going to go over with how the monsters work. So let's actually jump back up to the Alhoun, and let's take a look at what happens if we just roll this normally. So if we just click on one of these, we can come over here and we'll see that Foundry is pinging us for whether it's an ability check or a saving throw. We'll hit ability check, and then we also get this additional menu of situational bonus, roll mode, all that stuff. We'll hit normal, and I'm actually going to set these up to be side by side for now. And we'll come back over here, and this time we're going to do a shift click, and we'll see what the difference is. We still get asked what type of check we want it to be. We can say ability check, but then it automatically rolls it normally. Then if we come over and we do a control click, we'll do the same thing, hit ability check, and this time it came in at disadvantage. So shift plus click for a normal roll, control plus click for a disadvantage roll, and alt plus click for an advantage roll. And we can do any of the spells over here. We can do an attack, and then we can do control click, and it will do it at disadvantage. This is kind of built-in Foundry functionality over here, and everything works well. We can click over here, and it, oh wait, counterspell, that was a poor choice. We'll do then chill touch, and do a shift click for normal roll. It will add everything in for us. This is starting to get back into normal Foundry stuff as it comes over here, but we can send all of this over from DnDBeyond straight into Foundry without any additional extensions or modules or anything like that, and it's really great. Oh, and one other thing that I forgot to mention, my apologies, there is a VTT Assets Discord. Be sure to join it if you have any parse errors, if you have any additional questions, if you've got, if you want to see what the upcoming features are, what's in the works, all that kind of good stuff. Be sure to go over there. Be sure to sub on patreon.com/VTT assets at least the healthy snacks tier if you want to get the additional Patreon functionality that we talked about in this video, or at a lower tier if you just want to say thanks for all of the amazing stuff that Sebastian has made. He's got a handful of other modules that, like I said, we'll take a look at later, but are all also really cool. And just as a quick side note, it's been a lot of fun, or it was a lot of fun hanging out with y'all in the Foundry release streams over the past couple days. That was great. I hope the people that won their Foundry licenses, are enjoying them, and maybe watching these videos. That would be great. But that was a lot of fun, and I won't talk about it anymore. But thank you for helping me reach 1,000 subscribers. That's really crazy. I didn't think that anybody was going to watch these, but now I'm never going to talk about it again. So thank you all very much. You're very cool, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.